In a world driven by chaos, speed, and constant emotional reaction, there exists a rare kind of individual, those who remain calm, even in the midst of storms. Their stillness isn't emptiness, it's strength. Their silence isn't weakness, it's mastery. Calm people possess a psychological balance that allows them to move through life without being easily shaken by the unpredictable nature of events or people. They seem unbothered not because they don't feel, but because they have learned how to feel without losing control. Let's explore the psychology behind those who are always calm, the invisible habits, mindsets, and inner frameworks that allow them to stand still when the world trembles. Calm people seem to carry an invisible strength that others often mistake for detachment, but in truth, their composure begins with a deep sense of emotional awareness. They have learned to observe their inner world rather than be consumed by it. When anger, fear, or frustration arise, they don't suppress those emotions, nor do they allow them to explode outward. Instead, they take a moment to pause to feel what is happening within them and to recognize it for what it is. This pause is the foundation of emotional regulation, a psychological skill that allows them to create distance between what they feel and how they respond. It's not about eliminating emotion. It's about mastering the space between emotion and action. Most people react before they understand what they are feeling. Someone says something hurtful, and we lash out. A situation becomes stressful, and we panic. But calm individuals have developed a habit of awareness that prevents automatic reactions. They have trained their mind to notice sensations in their body, a tightening in the chest, a rush of heat, a quickened heartbeat, and to interpret these signals not as commands, but as information. This ability to identify emotions before they control behavior is what separates calmness from impulsivity. They acknowledge their anger without letting it dictate their words. They recognize fear without letting it shape their choices. This inner mindfulness gives them the power to choose reason over reactivity. From a psychological standpoint, calm people are in touch with their prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for reasoning and decision-making, rather than being hijacked by the amygdala, which governs emotional responses. While others are swept into the flood of emotional reaction, calm individuals activate the thinking mind. This neurological balance is not accidental. It's cultivated through experience, reflection, and sometimes even suffering. They've learned, often the hard way, that reacting impulsively only deepens pain and chaos. Through repeated practice, they've taught themselves that serenity is a form of strength, not passivity. Their awareness also comes from self-knowledge. Calm people understand their triggers, what frustrates them, what makes them anxious, and what situations tend to disturb their equilibrium. Because of this understanding, they navigate life with foresight. They avoid unnecessary conflict, and when confronted with difficulty, they approach it with curiosity rather than defensiveness. They ask themselves, "Why am I feeling this?" instead of saying, "This shouldn't be happening." That shift in internal dialogue transforms chaos into clarity. This awareness extends beyond the self. Calm people are often better listeners and more empathetic because their inner world isn't in constant turmoil. They can hold space for others without being swept away by their emotions. Their calmness is not indifference, it is containment. It is the ability to sit with discomfort without trying to escape it or change it immediately. That stillness gives them emotional power in situations where others lose control. Ultimately, emotional awareness is not a natural gift. It's a discipline. It's the slow and deliberate act of turning inward, noticing, and choosing. Calm people do not have fewer emotions, they have a deeper relationship with them. And that relationship, built on awareness rather than avoidance, becomes the foundation of an unshakable peace that radiates outward, influencing not just their own lives, but the atmosphere of everyone around them. Another key aspect of people who are always calm is their mastery of perspective, their ability to see life not through the lens of immediacy, but through the vastness of time and meaning. Calm individuals rarely allow temporary problems to dominate their inner world because they instinctively understand that most things, no matter how intense in the moment, eventually pass. This sense of proportion keeps them grounded when others lose their balance. They do not allow the urgency of emotion to convince them that a single event defines their entire reality. Instead, they ask themselves, will this matter in a week, a month, a year? That simple mental question expands their vision beyond the now and transforms anxiety into acceptance. Psychologically, this form of calm stems from cognitive reframing, a mental process where one intentionally changes how they interpret a situation. While others see misfortune as disaster, calm people reinterpret it as a lesson or a necessary part of growth. They know that life is not supposed to be frictionless. In fact, they view challenges as opportunities for the strengthening of character. This mindset shifts their emotional energy from resistance to adaptation. They accept that not everything can be controlled, and this acceptance becomes the root of their serenity. Instead of clinging to how things should be, they make peace with how things are. Perspective also grants them emotional distance. When faced with criticism, rejection, or conflict, they don't absorb it as a personal attack on their worth. They have learned to differentiate between what is within their control and what is not. The words and opinions of others, the unpredictability of fate, the failures that life inevitably brings, these things no longer threaten their sense of self because their identity is anchored internally, not externally. They no longer need constant validation or certainty to feel secure. This psychological detachment from external chaos is one of the reasons they appear unbothered when others are easily shaken. Their calm perspective is also nurtured by self-reflection. People who maintain inner peace often spend time alone, not in loneliness but in contemplation. They think about their lives in context, how past pain shaped them, how present challenges refine them, and how the future remains open and uncertain. This reflective habit allows them to see patterns where others see problems. It gives them a quiet wisdom, a subtle understanding that life's storms are not punishments but processes. Moreover, perspective gives calm people patience. They know that growth takes time, that emotions need space to settle, and that reacting too quickly can often ruin what could have been resolved with stillness. They trust that silence can be more powerful than argument, and that waiting can be wiser than rushing. Their patience is not weakness, it is strength under control, the strength to hold peace when everything around them urges reaction. Ultimately, the calm person's perspective is their shield. It prevents them from drowning in the immediacy of pain and keeps them centered in the wider rhythm of life. They see that storms pass, people change, and emotions fade, and because they hold that truth deeply, they are able to remain unmoved, composed, and quietly powerful in a world that constantly demands noise. Another defining trait of people who are always calm is their deep mastery of emotional regulation, the ability to manage their internal responses before those emotions manage them. This doesn't mean they don't feel anger, fear, or sadness. They do, but unlike most people who become trapped by their emotions, calm individuals have learned to observe them rather than obey them. They understand that emotions are like waves, temporary, powerful, and often deceptive. So instead of reacting impulsively when something triggers them, they pause, breathe, and give their feelings time to settle. This space between stimulus and response is where their peace is born. Psychologically, this skill comes from high emotional intelligence, the capacity to recognize, understand, and influence one's own emotional state. People who are calm have spent time developing an awareness of how their mind reacts under pressure. When frustration arises, they identify it as a passing signal rather than a command to act. This awareness weakens the grip of impulsive behavior. They don't lash out when criticized, panic when plans fail, or crumble when things feel uncertain. They have trained themselves to process emotions in private, not project them onto others. This habit of self-containment is not suppression, it's self-mastery. Calm people also know that not every thought deserves attention, and not every emotion requires expression. They understand that reacting to everything only fuels the fire of chaos, so instead, they allow feelings to pass through them, like clouds drifting across the sky. This emotional discipline often gives the impression that they are indifferent, but in truth, it is deep understanding they have realized that peace is not found by controlling the world, but by controlling their reactions to it. Another reason they manage emotions so effectively is their habit of reflection and self-regulation. They regularly evaluate their mental state, asking questions like, "Why did that bother me?" or "What can I learn from this discomfort?" Such introspection transforms negative emotions into insights. Instead of blaming circumstances, they look inward for patterns and triggers. Over time, this self-awareness becomes a powerful shield against emotional volatility. Their calmness is the result of countless unseen acts of internal dialogue, where they've taught themselves to respond from wisdom, not from wounds. Calm individuals also draw from grounding practices such as mindfulness, meditation, deep breathing, or simply moments of silence. These habits train the nervous system to stay composed even when life feels unpredictable. Scientifically, mindfulness lowers stress hormones and increases activation in areas of the brain responsible for emotional control. But beyond biology, these practices nurture a spiritual understanding that peace is an inside job. Ultimately, emotional regulation is what separates the calm from the chaotic. Those who are always calm have mastered the art of feeling without drowning, thinking without overreacting, and responding without hostility. They embody the truth that serenity isn't the absence of emotion, but the ability to move through emotion with grace. In a world that teaches us to express everything instantly, their restraint becomes an act of quiet rebellion and an example of true psychological strength. People who are always calm possess a unique relationship with time. They don't rush through it, they move with it. One of the deeper psychological traits they share is patience. While most people are enslaved by the need for immediate results, calm individuals understand that life unfolds in its own rhythm. They have accepted that not everything can be controlled or accelerated, and this understanding gives them profound inner peace. Impatience, after all, is a subtle form of resistance. It's the mind's refusal to accept the present moment. Calm people have dissolved that resistance. They trust the process, even when it's uncertain or slow, because they know that meaningful growth cannot be forced. This patience is not passivity, it is power. It comes from recognizing that things of value, healing, understanding, maturity, and success take time. When faced with setbacks, they don't spiral into despair or frustration. Instead, they breathe, reassess, and allow life to reveal its lessons. This ability to wait without anxiety gives them a psychological advantage over those who crumble under pressure. They do not equate movement with progress. They understand that stillness, too, is an essential part of development. This is why their energy feels grounded. They don't waste it fighting against time. Patience also shapes the way calm people interact with others. When someone loses their temper or becomes impatient, the calm person remains centered, not because they don't care, but because they see beyond the momentary chaos. They understand that emotional storms are temporary, and that reacting only amplifies the conflict. Their patience gives others the space to calm down, creating harmony where tension could have taken over. In this sense, their calmness becomes contagious. It regulates not just their own emotions, but the emotional atmosphere around them. Psychologically, patience comes from a long-term mindset. Calm people view life as a continuum, not a collection of isolated events. They know that every difficulty, every delay, and every disappointment contributes to a larger narrative. Because of this, they don't see failure as the end, but as a necessary part of progress. Their patience is supported by perspective, a broad understanding that what matters today might not matter in a year. This temporal awareness allows them to detach from the urgency that drives most human stress. Moreover, patience is deeply connected to self-trust. Calm people believe that they will eventually get where they're meant to go, so they don't panic when things don't happen immediately. Their calmness stems from this quiet confidence in both themselves and the flow of life. They know that rushing only breeds mistakes, and that what's truly meant for them cannot be missed. In essence, the patience of calm individuals is a reflection of wisdom, the wisdom to accept that every moment has its own timing, and that peace is found not in constant striving, but in surrendering to life's unfolding. They embody the profound truth that you cannot force the flower to bloom. You can only nurture the soil and wait for nature to take its course. Another core reason people who are always calm remain so composed is because they have developed strong emotional boundaries. They understand the difference between what belongs to them and what doesn't. In a world where people easily absorb the stress, anger, and negativity of others, calm individuals have mastered the art of emotional separation. They don't internalize other people's moods, reactions, or problems. Instead, they observe them with empathy but without entanglement. This psychological distance protects their peace. Many people confuse emotional boundaries with coldness, but calm individuals know that detachment does not mean indifference, it means maintaining inner balance. They can care deeply about others while still refusing to be consumed by their chaos. This ability is what allows them to navigate high-pressure situations without losing control. When someone yells, criticizes, or panics, they don't mirror that energy, they anchor themselves in stability. Their calm is not ignorance, it's mastery. It's the conscious decision to stay grounded when everything around them is shaking. From a psychological standpoint, this emotional boundary stems from self-awareness. Calm people have spent time understanding their triggers, their emotional limits, and their inner values. They know what disrupts their peace, and they protect it as something sacred. This doesn't happen overnight, it's the result of years of introspection and emotional growth. They've learned that not every problem requires their participation, and not every argument deserves a response. This self-control comes from the wisdom that energy is finite, and peace is a resource worth preserving. Emotionally boundaried people also tend to have a clear sense of responsibility. They only take ownership of what truly belongs to them, their actions, their choices, their emotions. This prevents them from being overwhelmed by guilt, shame, or blame that others might try to project onto them. Because of this, they can remain objective in emotionally charged situations. They can listen to someone's pain without making it their own, and they can face criticism without losing their sense of self-worth. This detachment gives them a clarity of mind that most people lose when emotions run high. Their calmness is also rooted in the understanding that emotional contagion, the phenomenon of absorbing others' emotions, is real. They choose their environment and relationships carefully, surrounding themselves with people who respect their boundaries. When negativity arises, they either address it calmly or step back before it consumes them. This conscious filtering of emotional input keeps their inner world clean and centered. Ultimately, people who are always calm live by one essential truth: they cannot control the emotions of others, only their response to them. They treat their peace like a fragile flame, not something to be exposed to every storm, but something to be shielded and tended with care. Their emotional boundaries are not walls but filters they let love, understanding, and empathy flow through while keeping out toxicity and unnecessary drama. This psychological discipline is what allows them to remain calm not just in silence, but even in the middle of emotional chaos. Calm people also maintain their composure because they have developed a deep sense of acceptance toward life and its unpredictability. They understand that much of what happens in the world is beyond their control, and fighting against that truth only breeds suffering. Instead of trying to bend reality to their will, they flow with it. This acceptance is not passivity or weakness, it is strength born from wisdom. It means knowing when to act and when to let go, when to push forward and when to surrender. By accepting life as it is, calm individuals free themselves from the constant anxiety of resistance. Most people's emotional turmoil comes from wanting things to be different than they are, wishing others would behave differently, wishing outcomes would change, wishing the past could be undone. Calm people, however, have come to terms with the limits of control. They don't waste emotional energy trying to rewrite what has already happened or force outcomes that aren't meant to be. They focus on what they can influence: their reactions, their attitude, and their perspective. This acceptance gives them psychological flexibility, the ability to adapt without breaking, to endure without bitterness. Their calmness often comes from an intimate understanding of impermanence. They know that everything: joy, pain, success, failure eventually passes. This awareness softens their emotional responses. When something good happens, they appreciate it deeply but don't cling to it. When something bad happens, they feel the pain but don't despair, because they know it won't last forever. This balanced view prevents emotional extremes and helps them stay centered amid the highs and lows of life. From a psychological perspective, acceptance reduces the brain's threat response. When we resist reality, the mind perceives it as danger, activating the fight or flight system. Calm people deactivate this response by aligning with reality instead of opposing it. They breathe, assess, and respond thoughtfully. Their serenity, then, is not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of it, the ability to face chaos without becoming chaotic themselves. Acceptance also brings inner peace because it removes the burden of constant judgment of others, of oneself, of the world. Calm individuals don't label every event as good or bad. They simply see it as part of a larger process. This non-judge mental mindset allows them to conserve emotional energy and maintain clarity in situations that would overwhelm most people. When disappointment strikes, they don't spiral into resentment or self-pity. They see it as a lesson, an adjustment, or simply a redirection. In essence, their calm is a product of surrender, not to failure, but to truth. They have stopped demanding that life be easy or fair, and instead, they focus on meeting it as it is. This mindset liberates them from unnecessary suffering and gives them a quiet confidence. When others panic, they breathe. When others fight reality, they align with it. When others are shaken by uncertainty, they find peace in knowing that they don't need to control everything, they only need to respond with grace, wisdom, and acceptance. Calm people remain composed because they have cultivated a deep and enduring relationship with solitude. They do not fear being alone. Rather, they find in solitude the clarity, stillness, and grounding that others often seek in noise and distraction. This relationship with their inner world is what sets them apart. While most people are constantly stimulated, chasing validation, scrolling endlessly, or engaging in social chatter, calm individuals retreat inward, where they can think, feel, and process without interference. Their silence is not emptiness. It is space for reflection and renewal. In this stillness, they understand themselves more deeply, which in turn allows them to navigate the outer world with more stability. Psychologically, solitude functions as emotional maintenance. It allows the brain to regulate overstimulation and restore mental energy. Calm individuals intuitively know this. They create moments of quiet not because they are antisocial, but because they understand that constant interaction drains emotional equilibrium. In solitude, they recalibrate. They examine their thoughts, untangle their emotions, and observe their inner reactions without judgment. This practice of self-observation strengthens emotional intelligence, the awareness of one's feelings, and the ability to manage them effectively. As a result, when they re-enter social environments, they do so grounded and centered, not reactive or overwhelmed. Their comfort in solitude also reflects their independence from external validation. People who constantly seek approval are easily destabilized because their self-worth fluctuates with the opinions of others. Calm people, however, draw strength from within. They don't need the world to affirm their worth, nor do they depend on constant attention to feel alive. This inner autonomy protects them from the chaos of comparison and social pressure. They are guided by internal values rather than external noise. When others chase approval or status, calm individuals focus on authenticity and self-alignment. This self-sufficiency gives them an unshakable calm, a kind of quiet confidence that cannot be easily disturbed. Moreover, solitude gives them perspective. When you step away from constant activity, you begin to see life more clearly, the patterns in your behavior, the sources of your stress, the illusions that control your desires. Calm people use solitude not to escape life, but to understand it better. It becomes a form of meditation, a dialogue with the subconscious. In these moments of stillness, they release unnecessary attachments, let go of resentment, and remind themselves of what truly matters. This mental cleansing prevents emotional clutter and allows them to remain balanced even in turbulent times. Ultimately, their calmness comes from a life lived in harmony with silence. They are not restless when alone because they have found peace in their own company. In solitude, they don't feel lonely, they feel complete. They use it as a sanctuary, not a prison, as a mirror, not a void. Their stillness is not something they were born with, it is something they built, one quiet moment at a time. And it is in those moments of silence that their calm deepens, becoming less of a reaction and more of a way of being, a reflection of a mind that has learned to rest within itself.